me for so long. So naturally they are right in questioning you and asking you questions. You took me to be the God-man, God in human form. So they will say that, well, how many years you all have passed? Decades you have passed. So naturally you all must have talked about God a lot. Naturally, living with the God-man means what? It all revolves around the topic of God, Godhood. So suppose if people were to come and ask you after I pass away, after all, what did you say, what is God? What will be your answer to them?
Yes, what
He
is
will pose that. For you, he poses the question. So what is God? So then he said all these things he had already said, that God cannot be understood, God cannot be this, God cannot be all that is there. But what is God after all? If he cannot be understood, if he cannot be read, he cannot be theorized and all that, so what is God? That's what he told us. And he gave us the secret which I am sharing with you. How much will you pay me? In oil money. Because you are from Saudi Arabia. So what he said is, when people will come and ask you, what is God? So the only answer to it is a counter question. What is not God? There is nothing but God. God is that. You follow?
Yes, but I mean this cassette there is not the same as only in one way is this as much God as you are or
as he is. As long as you accept him, accept it as the existence. You allow this cassette to exist, isn't it? That's why you are showing it. You take it as existence. God is existence, infinite and eternal. Anything that exists naturally is what is not God. Anything that you make exist, exists. Even non-existence is God, because it exists in the infinite eternal existence. Infinite eternal existence includes non-existence, and that is God.
But some things bring you...
Yes, say.
It's hard to find the words for it.
Something what? Something what?
Some things are more reminiscent of God than other things.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you could worship...
You have God's hair and God's toenails and God's fingernails and God's smile and God's ears and God's fickle matter and God's this and God's that. Different types, you see. Suppose if you had to sacrifice something, would you want to sacrifice, if an option is given, well, Alan, there is the option. You have to sacrifice your small finger or your eye. Which would you prefer? Why? It's both yours. Why do you have preferences? Why?
Because one is less useful.
So that's how it is. So there are degrees of, you see, the aspects in existence is that. He being existence, infinite and eternal, there are these different variations and aspects of his existence. It is because of the mind, Baba says, that we have all these variations. Otherwise there is no such thing as that. Mind is the thing that gives separateness, manynesses and all that. And how can he tolerate the manyness? So he gave us a very good figure, you see. To us it appears to be manyness, but what is his experience of the manynesses? Mm-hmm. You are the embodiment of manyness, and yet you consider and you experience as Alan as a whole. Don't you experience that?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, you experience. You are asked, well, may I know your name? Who are you? I'm Alan. You say, what's your second name, by the way? Hadley. Yeah. So, Alan Hadley. Well, we know it. But, well, your very being is nothing but manyness manifest in you. There's the hair of yours, the eyes of yours, fingers, toes, clothes, this, that, smiles. your feelings, your thoughts, and your liver and pancreas and heart and all this sort of thing is there, full of manynesses. But total experience is of oneness. I am Alan. So likewise, him being nothing but manyness in this creation, he experiences himself as one. The experiences of Alan, just Alan. But Alan is composed of so many things, which is Alan too. It's like that. But then you say, it's not Alan, that's Alan's hair. So that's what he would say, that yeah, that's my hair too. Alan is my dreams, he'll say. But it is him. It stems from him. It is rooted in him. It's his being that brings about this. That's how it is. And that's what Baba has given succinctly, You have read Wayfarers?
No.
Written by an English doctor, Dr.
Yes,
William Donkin.
No, I've heard of
So
it.
in that succinctly has put, you see, that mind working is man. We call ourselves human beings man. So he puts succinctly, mind working is man, mind working fast is mad. Mind working slow is God absorbed. The word that he has used is must, M-A-S-T. Is the word, in vernacular we describe the God absorbed as one who's overpowered. So, mind working is man, mind working fast is mad, mind working slow is God absorbed, mind stopped is God. So it is the mind that creates all these variations, these differentiations, that's what he tells us. All that we have to do is to experience, live that. No amount of theory can make you live without your mind. It's because you theorize, because of your mind you theorize it. You follow? So it's the mind that takes you to him, and the mind that withdraws you away from him.
So when you go to sleep, or if you're knocked unconscious, or...
But consciously, he says. What you have to do is to, when mind stops, then you're conscious. You in full consciousness. Then only you have the experience of your infinitude. When you go into sound sleep, unfortunately, as a human being, you have full and complete consciousness as he described in God Speaks. But it's overburdened with all the impressions. But your mind, at the time, you see, when you are fast asleep, somehow or other, you become unconscious. So what is needed is to remain fully conscious in your sound sleep state, and that is God's state.
It's a $64,000 question. How do you stop your mind?
Well, what you have to do is you stop your mind, but then there are many variations where people go in for it. In the past advents, he has come and given us various formulae for it. He has given us many paths, milestones on the spiritual journey, and they are known as the different yogas. Karma yoga means selfless service, Jnana yoga through discerning and deciphering and perceiving, and Raj yoga and Ghat yoga and all, and then Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the one eventually you revert to after experiencing all these various milestones that are given to you on the journey. What we have to do is all these yogas, all these practices, they help you not to stop your mind, but to still your mind. You see? You still the mind. So for the time being, you feel the presence of the eternal existence. And you find yourself within it. It's infinite. So where is your room? You're in it. But what happens is, as soon as you come out of it, of that trance or of that attitude of your mind, then mind begins to work again. When mind still is not stopped. So what is needed is, for mind to stop is to steal the mind. S-T-E-A-L. Mind has to be stolen. Heart has to be given the opportunity, and that can be done only by loving the Lord intensely, in its most intrinsic sense. Not the love we call it, the sex love, or the life that a human being lives, you see, of love. To love him is to love all, he says. To love all is not loving him. But to love me in all is loving me also. So that's how it is. It's all words, Aaron. All these Baba would say that these are all words, high thinking, good. Some philosophers were around him, and at that time they were saying about their own philosophy and all that. Baba says it's all good. But you know, my definition of philosophy, simple thing made difficult is philosophy for me. So I don't understand all these things. All I want you is know one thing. All that you have to do is, and fall back time and again, is on loving me. Just love me and let the rest of the business be looked after by him. That's what he would tell us. But what happens is, while loving him, we don't allow him to take the rest of the business in his own hands. We keep it in our hands. Wanting to progress, wanting to advance, wanting to reach him.
What do you mean you shouldn't want to advance?
No,
shouldn't want to progress?
You shouldn't be. Baba says, you go and I come. That's the only thing that is needed. Then who is there to experience? Nobody is left to experience. And that is the experience.
Is that what they call void?
Yeah, that's called nirvana. Again, we have a deep sigh. We have noticed. Sally, we have noticed that you are right. Good morning, Jai Baba. Where is our Jerry? Well, that's how you take positions on the stage, eh?
We have a new dance, or you know the game with the knife that you go like this?
No.
Oh, you don't do that here?
We never play with the knife. We are very wary to use the knife here, you see. Only we allow him to use the knife. What is that game?
Well, you put your hand on a table and
Oh God!
give the knife to your best friend.
Huh?
So I was going to do that jumping through.
And you give the knife to your best friend to do what? To knife you?
No.
Then?
To go in between each finger.
Or between
the
you.
knife.
But suppose if he's cockeyed as I am, then...
I think it's a game of trust.
Oh, I see.
You don't give it to cockeyed friends.
He cannot be your best friend. Eh? That's right. That's right. So we have to be very discreet in creating friendship too. So Tim, what was you said something? You said you have a question. By the way, be free to ask. You are only for a day, so don't hesitate. You can go on asking. If I know, I will tell you.
Change the subject. Can I change the subject?
Yeah.
Can I ask about you, Eric?
What about me? About me?
About
me?
you personally.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
So I'll ask, because I'm only here for a day, it's a bit rude, but I was going to ask you if there were times when you found it very difficult to follow Baba, almost impossible, when you felt that it wasn't worth the candle or...
Yeah, so? Yeah, there were times. Yeah.
Can you describe this time?
What was the worst?
And how did you change from that state?
I will not be doing justice to your question, because your question for me is rather wacky a bit, but it amounts to that. Never was a time when I felt that it was not worthwhile, because never have I come to him with that question in my mind that it is worthwhile to follow him. You follow? So there cannot be any occasion that I must think about that it's not worthwhile.
So it's never occurred to you to doubt Baba?
No, wait. I'm just trying to... I know. What I'm saying is this, that never did it occur to me that it's not worthwhile to be with him. Because I didn't come with the intention that it is worthwhile to be with him. What had happened, you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you don't follow, please ask me to repeat. Because, my limitations. I'm an illiterate person. I'm not an English professor like you. So, be indulgent with me and ask me to clarify. So, never was there a time that for doubts, oh my. What had happened is my coming to him was that he called me. He summoned me. I don't know why, but he summoned me to him. There have been occasions in the past, you leave and come to me.
How did he summon you?
He cabled me and says, come to me, I want to see you, come immediately and see me. So I came. After all, he is a personality worth following at least this little routine. A person calls and you go. My parents knew him, and I, of course, had come to know of his name through my parents. And I had come to respect him and regard him, having regards for him, a kindly, good, lovable person. He is a good, ordinary, good person. Yeah. That's how it was. That relationship was there. Because my parents followed him, and I was a student in college. So he summoned me while I was on vacation in summertime. And summoned me through, naturally, either one writes a letter or one calls out or one sends a cable or telegram. So I was sent a telegram. And I didn't take it seriously. And he says, come immediately and see me at MeherBabaLibrary. This is the place where he's standing. So, I took the cable and put it in my pocket because I had a hobby of gardening, And summertime where I was really very telling upon the delicate plants, and plants were my hobby. And I loved them very much. And they were really not the ordinary type, but they were rare plants. So I was trying to put them in shade and trying to take great care of it and all that. My mother heard that some messenger had come to our place, a bungalow. She came. Is there a telegram? Because they ring the bell, when they come. Cycle, they used to come on cycle. And they had bells on the cycle. Nowadays we have messengers that don't have even bells. They just hack at people, hey, get out from here and come, hey, is there anybody like that? So they used to, very politely, it was British rule, brother. It was very good. So they had their etiquettes and discipline and manners and all that. They would ring the bell, and nice bell. So my mother heard that and came out. Says, did anybody come here? Any messenger? Because that was the sign. We used to receive telegrams, a lot of telegrams. My father was on a big post. So I said, yes, mother, there is a telegram. She says, from where? So I just took it out from my pocket and I handed over. I had no time even to talk about it all. And my mother says, well, what are you doing now? I said, what? She says, he's calling you immediately, and there is a train there now in a couple of hours. What are you trying to do? I said, mother, I can't leave immediately. Means it can be next day. What's the immediacy about it? He calls me, I'm going, I'll go. Yeah, I'll obey that. He says, but do you realize he's calling you immediately? So for the first time I had a tiff with my mother on this score. I remember that. And she just turned her back and walked away from me. Because she wanted me to leave everything and go immediately. That's how she believed in the Lord. And that's how I took the Lord's words. You follow? I'm giving you a little difference. But he's a tricky Lord. Whenever he comes in our midst as a human being, he has the same traits of a human being, to be tricky. God is really very innocent, as He is in His intrinsic being. He is guileless. But when He comes down as a human being, beware, I tell you all. You can't play tricks with Him. Yeah, it's my open confession to you all. Howsoever tricky you be as a human being, but He is still more. Yeah. So, well, I continued my work. My mother-in-law left me and all that. And I was a bit, I was sad at heart that I displeased my mother, because I love my mother very dearly. They are good parents, Yeah. Then the trick that he played was that within an hour, another messenger comes, having the same contents, but from a different station. He's sending another cable to me. Come immediately and see me. Well, I was working in the garden, means outside, so naturally I was the first one to accost that man and take it. I read it. And I saw the cable, the name of the station is different, so it's registered that he's traveling. He's somewhere in the train, from a different station he's sending a cable. So my mother comes again. Any message again? I said, yeah, I gave the telegram. And that was to blow her top off. So she said that, what are you trying to do? He's calling you and there's no more time left. Don't you want to come inside and prepare yourself to go? This is a long distance from where we lived. That's how I came to him. I went to him. I, of course, immediately left everything. I asked the gardener to attend to this, and well, I didn't like to leave the pots and plants and all, but somehow or other, for the love of my mother, I had to go. And I did go. And when I went there, the interview was just this. I went there. I, of course, had to find out, and of course, it doesn't take much time to find out his whereabouts. So people pointed, he's there in that bungalow, you go there, turn that street, and there you go. So I went there, and when I entered, he was there in the room. So looking at me, he was sitting on the floor, and he was in silence. So he looked at me, and with a gesture of a finer feeling, he was expecting, and I came. So he was happy to see me. I said, yes, I did. I've come. So come inside. And he embraced me and all that. Sit down. So I sat. He says, I want you to leave everything and come away and be with me. Is it possible? So I don't know what made me say that. That's again another trick of the God-man. So out comes from my lips these words. Why I said it, I don't know. Still this day, I don't know. Because I was not that follower of Meher Baba, or as people call the lover of Meher Baba, to fall for him. And I simply said that by your blessings, anything is possible. So he was very happy with the answer. He says, yeah. He tapped me on my back. He says, I want you to come on 1st August. This was May. End of May. So come on 1st August here. Arrive on 1st August. I said, yes. He embraced me and I left. That was the only immediacy about it all. I don't know why he called me for that, just to say that. He could have even, if he is what he is, that made me say that anything is possible by your blessings, and he could have even written to me, and that would have been possible. Don't you think so? But it needed that personal touch, I think. I think so. Yeah. So that's what it is needed, you see. He can summon us, he can ask us to do many things from where he is in the 7th heaven, but sometimes he feels that personal touches are needed, and therefore time and again he comes in our midst as a human being, although he is capable of doing anything from wherever he be. And then as I am stepping out of the room, he beckons to me and says, so I look back, I say, come here, sit down. is it possible for the whole family to leave everything and come? So I said, by your blessing, by your grace, anything is possible. I didn't use the word blessing, I'm sorry. It was by your grace, anything is possible. That was the word I used. So he again was happy. Says, then tell all of them to come on first. Leave everything and come on first. That's how we are.
Would you have ever said such word before?
No, I never
came.
came. I had studied the life of the Lord, Jesus Christ, of course.
Right.
But never put to use those words, you see. But, yes?
Did anybody interpret for you?
No.
Or
No. Because it was all by myself and him.
and you could just understand this?
Yeah, because he had taught me to read his board when I was a child. And that's a different long story, you see. But this, he used to pay a visit to our place. And he'd come, as children we would be there, around him and all that. And we'd want to play rough games, but he wanted us to be. So eventually I absconded, he would wait, I would keep him waiting and then all that. In the evening he would take me and then of course he would tell me stories on the board. And that fascinated me, and I would try to read faster and still faster, and he would move the fingers fast. That's how I gathered to read the board from my childhood, without my knowing and all that. So that's how it was. So it was nothing. It didn't even occur to me that I am all by myself, because I used to be with him like that. When he used to visit our home, from where I came to meet him there. Follow? Is Bala Sahib?
Yes.
Will you please get that letter that I wrote to, what's the name? I forget the name also.
Maybe?
Mehdi, yeah. He knows. So what happened is that, eventually, to cut the whole story short, because you are only here for a few hours and Tim is waiting for another question. So eventually we all arrived at his place, you see, and we were with him. And I'm still here with him. But in between, many years have passed by. And to answer your question, I will read out a letter I wrote in reply to a person who asked me that question. So that will put an end to, the curiosity or whatever it be. And it went on, that state of my mind was such, you see. What I said in the beginning, pardon? Yeah, Craig would read. So what I was saying is, Alan, that I didn't come to him with any thought of any gain or being worthwhile to be by his side. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes,
My
yes,
logic was there at the time. The understanding was quite different. He called me and I came, but why I came I didn't know. You follow?
But that's not the case with most people, is it?
Wait. But then what happened? Yeah, it's not the case with most people.
You were lucky.
So, yeah, that's right. It's wonderful. That's true. What you're saying is, I'm blessed, I should say, not lucky.
Yes.
It is so true. It's His grace that it keeps me to Him and all that. Because there are many instances where people would want to come and they live with Him. And to prolong the stay, it only needs His grace, which happened to come out of my mouth. And yeah, He filled me with His grace to be with Him. That's true. There's no doubt about it. So what I'm saying is that, but that saying this and saying that, we have heard all the stories of people, the Lord having asked some of them, at least one or two examples are there mentioned there, leave and come and follow me. And that's the end of the whole story, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the whole story, it is the beginning. What happened is, but nobody tells us what happened to them. But I'm here to share with you all the experiences. And my mother said at the time when I returned home, naturally they were anxious, why did he call? So what she said is, how blessed we are that he on his own called us, instead of our having gone and clung to his wrist, you see, to hold on to him. Perchance our grip would loosen and we might miss him. We might leave him, abandon him. But now that He has called us, He has a hold over us. It is His grip over us. So there's no chance of escape, brother. And she was overjoyed and all that. And well, it was so for her and for others who were there. But I didn't know. All this was something very strange to me. Didn't register anything there. And she's happy, I'm very happy because my parents are happy. My father says, well, I asked my father, what has he to say? I says, well, all that has been spread and collected and gathered around. It's a big estate that my father had created. All the amenities and facilities were there, including the pools, swimming pools and aviaries and apiaries and tennis courts and this and that. And perfect garden, which was considered to be the best of the garden in the whole city. And so many things were there. And she says, I have collected all this for your happiness and welfare. And if you find greater happiness at his feet, I am not unhappy about it. That was his answer. And that's how we all came. But that is not the end of it all. That is the beginning. And people think that, well, once you leave the world and you come, and that's the end of it. But He doesn't want us to leave the world. He wants us to be always in the world, but be not of it. This is the first time He has made it very clear to us. So soon after that, of course, we thought that we have left the world and all that, and we came just with a little bedding roll of ours. You know, what do you call bedding roll?
Mattress.
No,
Sleeping bag.
Sleeping bag. So, and a pair of clothes, and that was all. So, and we thought that, well, that's the end of the world, worldly life. But no. 4 separate occasions He made us create a new home, and that was following Him. When we had our home of our parents, it was following ourselves, you see. Now this He wanted us to establish a home and live in it, and that was following Him. Although we were householders, brothers and sisters went to schools and colleges and did this, and we used to go to marketing, and we had to pay the rent and we had to pay the taxes, this, that and all that, but doing for whom? Doing for Baba. There's a world of difference, doing for oneself and doing for Him. Doing for oneself is living. That's how for 4 times, 4 different occasions. And He would Himself go with me, to find another house, another cottage, to see that my family is properly housed in it. Thoughts never occurred in my mind at the time. So what is this nonsense going on? He made us leave the world there. We had our established home and all that. Why does He want us to be back in home? His grace. Such things never occurred. But what happened is, the doubts occurred in a different way, you see. And that is depicted here. Mind is a very tricky thing. Human being is such, Alan, you know, we all know. But we never try to share with others, We are shy of our trickiness. Read what it is. So this will give you an idea about my life with Him.
The letter is dated December 7th, 1977. My dear Mehdi,
Right.
your sweet letter of November 23rd...
He's a professor in Tehran. Tehran.
Your sweet letter of November 23rd touched my heart deeply, and I am grateful to beloved Baba for giving us such hearts as yours to warm our hearts with the beauty of His love that He has poured into yours. By now, hundreds of people have asked me, how do I believe Baba is God? And you're asking the same question is nothing surprising. My simple answer is, I believe Baba is God because He is God. But you have also asked me, how do I believe Him to be God? Well, it took my mind to accept Him as God more than 40 years, and the last 30 years were spent almost at His feet, making my mind hold on to Him, to His Daman, sometimes with both hands. Although my mind was bombarded constantly with and by his statements, I am God in human form, I am the Ancient One, I am the God-Man, I am the highest of the high, I am infinite consciousness, I am infinite and eternal existence, I am infinite power, knowledge, bliss, I am the lowest of the low and the highest of the high, I am,
and I am.
In spite of it all, and in spite of his overwhelming physical presence, my mind, my stubborn and stupid mind, interrogated within me, is he that? Is he that? Such is mind, which is also his creation, to keep going his game of hide and seek. It is he who hides, and it is he who seeks, and is eventually sought and found. He as Mehdi is the seeker and the disciple and the lover and is in search of the beloved. He remains hidden behind Mehdi, or in other words, he himself wears the veil of Mehdi and plays the divine game of hide and seek. When he sheds the veil, Mehdi, he reveals himself and proclaims himself, I am God. So, my very dear Mehdi, as long as he continues to identify himself as Mehdi, you, as Mehdi, stand no chance of experiencing beloved Baba's Godhood. Hence, beloved Baba has exhorted us, saying, God is infinite and eternal existence, and he is never lost. Therefore God cannot be found. How ridiculous it is to find something or someone that is never lost. So stop trying to find God. He can never be found, for he is never lost. What indeed is needed is to lose yourself, and God continues to be immanent. Beloved Baba has comforted us so often by wanting us to be determined to be his. Once we remain determined to be his, and completely depend and rely on his grace and compassion, he takes over from us the process of unveiling himself. So be ever determined to be his, be childlike, and depend upon his compassion and grace entirely, and allow him to wind up his game of hide and seek within you. You ask me whether I have the experience of his Godhood, and my answer is that I do not have this experience, but I believe in his Godhood and his being the Ancient One. Best for you is that you visit us here often, and allow us the pleasure of your company, so that by your questioning we will remain all the more in his company. Yours, Eruch.
Eruch, it is from this letter that the question I had for you today comes.
That's all.
That's how it works. And while we were sitting here, I've been thinking, having read it and come with that question, I was thinking, I wish Eruch would let me read that letter out because it answers all the questions you've been asking.
That answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
Because he is a person, you see, who loves Baba. He has begun to love. He was in the States. Then he went back, you see, on his post there. He is a worker there. And genuinely he asks these questions. He has visited us twice, thrice here. And it is like that. Every time he would say, and my role was to interpret his gestures, to read his board, and the public address system is there in my hands. And I am reading his board or gestures and say, Meher Baba says that he is God in human form. I would say it loudly, but nobody knew what's happening within me. The mind immediately interrogates. So, is he that? You follow?
When Baba used to do his board, and he would say, I am.
In the beginning, for us, you see, when he used to teach us to read his board, he did that as a child when I was. But later on, you see, he would use his gestures, finger gestures, and his assertions were so eloquent that even you would follow what he's saying, you see.
But when you used the board, it wasn't so slow as you did.
Yeah. Very fast.
I thought I was doing it
For
fast.
the reader, it was upside down. You know, Baba did it so fast, and sometimes while he was doing it, he would, look up.
It's like a typist, you see.
And I was wondering how, because we were concentrating on that. And in between the English alphabet, also composed words of other languages. A word of Persian would come in, or some words of Marathi would come in, or Hindi,
Gujarati.
See it, and in the middle of an English sentence, like chai would come in, or swag, or whatever so we got used to being very quick, but he was so quick and so graceful. There was none of this, like this, and those beautiful hands of Baba, like that. We were reading from, it was upside down, that's it, we were on that side of the board.
Yeah, it could be
What
so.
was his gesture for I am God, I'm all powerful, I'm infinite?
But it was very casual, but he's just sitting there, being there, conveyed that, but he said, God, remember, I am God. When he would take pains to make us feel at home with him, so that when we were playing, say cards or any game with him, that the man of the avatar, he was man, you see, we're playing with the god man, there was more emphasis on the man. And when we were totally immersed in that aspect and really enjoy ourselves, even pointing out to him that he was cheating, and then he would do it again to show that we couldn't catch him out anyway. And at the end of it, he would remind us, don't forget, I am God. And when we remembered that he was God, he would take pains to show that he was man. He would say,
Very tricky.
well,
Very true.
there's one story which I've repeated so many times, that I happened to come into the Mandali hall one morning. Baba was seated here, and the main Mandali was seated before him, and Baba was looking weak and not well, and said, I better go to the women's side earlier for lunch and to retire to my room to rest. So I came over at that time for something, and I saw this happening. I saw Baba looking small, frail, and there were moments when Baba looked big, so big. And when we think back, there are certain incidents and we say, when we said this and this happened, Baba was looking so big. Because we didn't realize at the time, you see. And there were moments when we look back on and we realize how small Baba looked, how frail. So when I came in, that is how Baba looked. And he said, my health is not at all good. I want to go sooner there to retire. So immediately, Eruch jumped up and Francis. And they both came to him, one to the right, one to the left, took hold of his hand to help lift him up so that he could then go over to be in the lift chair and they would carry him. So Francis caught the left hand, Eruch caught the right hand, and they were just about to lift him up, support him, uphold him. And Baba was still looking frail and weak. And I saw this happening, just a little finger moved. But Baba's hand was in their hands. It just moved a finger, imperceptible. And when he did that, they almost toppled over him and over each other. They were trying to save from falling on him, and fumbling and stumbling, and one was holding to the arm of the chair and the other was holding. It was absolute confusion for a moment. And then when they stood up, and Francis looked so amazed, and he said, "Oh, Baba, you are strong." And Baba looked up and said, with a twinkle in his eye, he said, "Don't forget it." And the next moment, he was weak. Lift me up, help me up.
Isn't there a story where after some seclusion work or something, when he had been fasting for a long time also, he got the mandolin in a line and they tried to push him and like...
That was early years,
Early
yes.
years.
Yeah. Whole line of mandali were summoned to just make him budge from the seat. And they didn't. They tried their best, you see. So that's the strength, you see, that he exhibited to teach us children, you know. Yeah, we were young. What happened to Alan? Where is he going?
Bathroom maybe?
Like that tailor. You know the story of the tailor, but some of you may not be knowing, so I was repeating it. When Baba was giving darshan in Guru Prasad in Pune, those times when he said, "All right, they can all come," that was an opportunity when everybody should take it. Because at the end of it, when the darshan was over, which we looked forward to, the household Mandi looked forward to the end of the darshans. You know, we were also selfish, but... And so Baba was opened, the door of his heart was opened a tiny bit, as he himself said, whenever his lovers gathered before him for darshan. But when it was over, and he would be coming into the room, then we had our Baba, you know, changing his sadra, he was tired, wiping the sweat from his shoulders, arranging for food, giving him lunch, you know, very household, homely, at home. So then after that, if somebody sent a message that someone was late and they would love to see you, Baba, just 1 minute. Oh, it was so difficult for Baba. But he did it. He always did it, no matter how. So, anyway, when all these his lovers were before him, and among them was a tailor, a reputed tailor, as he himself told us, who hadn't seen Baba before. I mean, Baba lovers are of all vocations, of all nationalities, of all castes, all creeds. So among the doctors and the lawyers and the salesmen and businessmen and the sweepers and whoever, there was this tailor. And he saw Baba for the first time, and he was totally won over. His heart just went to Baba. And there was only one thought in his mind. I have to sow something for God. I have to do it with my own hand. Will he accept it? Will he allow me? So after the darshan was over and they'd gone, he suddenly passed on the other side of the veranda where Eruch Jessawala was, which was a corner of the veranda, and he's, you know, at the bottom of the steps. When Eruch saw him, he said, told of his heart's desire, you know, would he allow me to make something with my own hand? I want to make a coat for him. I want to sew a coat for God. And Eruch said, of course, why not? He didn't say no. I think a message was sent, and they came back and said, yes, he could do it. So Eruch said, well, you will need the measurements. He was so dignified and indignant. Measurements? Me? Have you heard my name before? I only have to take one look at a person and I know their measurements. I'm that reputed so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm that tailor. Oh, Eruch said, oh, all right, fine. What about the color? And he said, I've seen the color. Just allow me to do it. He went, and he told us later that he just got the material, and all night he was sewing, every stitch by hand. He was sewing in the night and the day till it was done in the afternoon, and he came. And he said, it is done. Will he accept it? Eruch assured him, oh. Anyway, when it went to Baba, and Baba tried it on at our request, and poor Baba, it was so big that the pockets were where the knees are. The shoulders were up to here, and the sleeves were hanging way beyond his fingertips. And he kept dropping them. Dopey in the 7/12. And Baba had such twinkle in his eye, and it would say, "Look what I have to do for love's sake," and then bending down to put his hands in his pocket, and when he went to the, we had a hard time not tittering in the army. It was really delightful. So when he went to the men mandali, Eruch couldn't believe it. He kept saying, "But Baba, he's such a famous tailor. Baba, he's such a reputed tailor." And Baba said, "I know, look at this." So in the evening he was going to come back, and he came. And he said, did he? And Eruch said, yes. You know, it was done with so much love, and Baba has accepted it, it's true. But I know, it was too tight. It was too tight, said Eruch. By that time he couldn't. He said, it was so big. Big? Anyway, because of that, see the excuse Baba uses also. There are so many purposes served in this. That this also served as for the man to see, for the tailor to see Baba. Because that next thing Baba put it on for him to see, and he couldn't believe it. And then he said, when I first saw Baba, he looked so big. So big. And I thought this coat would be too tight to fit. That's the only thing that worried me. But then he saw Baba again, and he became a Baba lover, and he came many times.
Did you ever make a coat that fit Baba?
Yes. Yes. Oh, he took it back. And then without measuring Baba, he made it the right size.
What is your question, Robert?
On the first story that Monty told, where Baba just moved the finger and you and Francis fell over.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts at that time?
Nothing. The thoughts were to just help him out from the seat. You know, he met with an accident. And that was after the second accident where his hip joint got busted, and it was not easy for him even to get up from the chair. So when he desired to leave the Mandali hall, we would go to him, rush to him to give him a lift, a little hand, make him stand up, and the lift chair would be brought there and help him to turn, and then make him sit in the lift chair and lift him. This is the chair that he used. There's no other thoughts. No other thoughts would be there. But once we did have a thought, both of us, because see that the handles are there, so there will be one person holding the end two bars, and in the front there will be two persons holding the chair. So what we had noticed was, naturally you can't hold with two hands, so one has to hold it with one right hand, the other on the left hand. So that's how Francis and myself would hold. Francis was not that old as people have seen him now. He was very active and strong, and he is still strong, but was not. Years ago we are talking about. So one day it so happened, well, we used to register certain things while lifting him and taking him there and bringing him here and all that. So one day it was abnormally a thing that is to be registered, and that was that simultaneously we both felt that he was very light and average weight was there, and all of a sudden our shoulders had to balance the weight. All of a sudden there came a weight, you see, a very heavy weight on the chair. From where did it come? So Francis looked at me and I looked at him. That was the only thought that we had, and we just exchanged. Says, Francis, what's this? You noticed that? Says, yes, we have been noticing. I said, yes, I have been noticing, but this was abnormal a weight, you see. So yeah, that's all. That's the only thought we have. But the thing is, Robert, to us now, while we talk about it, while we reminisce, but at the time his presence is so overwhelming. These thoughts, which are pertinent, no doubt, but they were stray thoughts for us. They would sometimes, even if they come, we wouldn't apply any significance to these things. But they would be registered sometimes, you see, once in a while. His presence was overwhelming. To be with him is enough, and to carry out his behests, as I told you all, whatever his grace is, that's the thing.
Eruch, do you remember the day that Duncan died?
He died at Vilu's place there. He died in a cottage there, yes. I don't
Shortly after Baba dropped the body?
Yeah.
Do you remember that day or the events of that day?
No. The only thing that was, prior to his death, he had come here. He had paid a visit to Bombay. And he came to my cabin. That cabin, where I stay. And that's the chair. It is his camp chair. That is the chair there. So he came and sat down. He used to smoke pipe or cigars, and he always used to have Nescafe with him. I don't know. He got wedded to these two things because he couldn't, although he stayed with us for so long and he mastered our languages and all that, but he could not develop the taste, Indian taste. He could not stand the chilies and the pepper that we use, the amount of chilies and pepper. Because his tongue was sore because of a lot of smoking and coffee drinking and all that. So he sat there smoking, and all that he said, just before he died, he said this, means some days before he died. I met him here. But the last day I don't know anything about it because he never stayed here. He used to stay there. But I vividly remember that he comes there and we have a chat and all that. And there is some letter that has come of some Baba lover somewhere, I forget now. And I said, Don. We used to call him Don. Don, hear this. And I read out that some experience there. And he was smoking and he was hearing. And for the first time after our life with him, from 1939 to 1969, 30 years, for the first time he spoke out, at least in my hearing. Yes, I vividly remember the day when I met him first. That's what he said. He wouldn't speak out, you see. He was, English people are very conservative. They wouldn't want to speak out things. They keep to themselves, very reticent, yeah. And it would consider to be not etiquette, to speak out openly or anything. As I speak out, you see, it would be rude for them. Please be indulgent if you feel that. So it's like that. So he speaks out now and he is reminiscing. Yeah, that was the day. It's vivid in my memory. I said, what is that day? Which day? Oh, the first day that Will and Mary took me. It was Will who took me to Baba. I was a student in the medical college. He was studying medicine, he became a surgeon eventually. And Baba must have gone to England for the first day. And they had told him about Baba. Will and Mary Beckett. I don't know whether you all have heard the name. Mm-hmm. Will and Mary, the archangels of Baba. Baba used to call them. So, and it led me to his room and I entered. And I don't know what happened. All I saw was, I didn't see Baba, all I saw was the whole room was just shedding bright light. It was just total brightness, that's all. And in that brightness I was standing there, not noticing anything except the brightness. And my knees began to quake and I was not steady at all. I didn't know what happened. I don't know how I found myself outside the room, but I used to walk, I started walking the street, but I was out of myself. It lasted for about 10-15 days. And that's vivid in my memory. My first meeting with him was not seeing Meher Baba, but seeing what he really is. That's what he told me. Very reticent, never would speak out anything.
There's something I would like to
Yeah.
say. This reminds me of an aspect that I would like to speak on. What Eruch has said now about Donkin's experience, we used to call him Don, because the first time he was asked his name by Kaka Baria, instead of saying William, like the English would do, he said his last name, Donkin.
Donkin.
So he was called Donkin, which was abbreviated to Don. And a while ago I was talking about how when the darshans were over, Baba would come in to just the household, the resident monthly. And at that time he wanted everybody to leave. Everybody from Guru Prasad who had come for darshan to leave. And he would say, have they left? Have they all gone? Has everybody gone? And we said, Baba, you're in your room. There may be a few in the compound of door. Have they gone? Again and again. So there would come times, once in a while, when a last-minute arrival would be reported. And they would beg, please, we have waited for this for so long, but such and such happened, and this happened to the train, and this happened to the Tonga, and so for some reason or other, they couldn't get there in time to have Baba's darshan, and the whole congregation of his lovers was before him. So, the Mandali didn't want Baba disturbed, but their hearts would be moved, so in the end, some message would come in through someone, and it would reach Baba. And Baba would say, no, it's all done over, please, Baba, he's this and that. So the women would then, also take the side of the lover who was yearning so much for Baba's darshan, and we didn't know when Baba would give darshan again. All right, said Baba. So he would ask for his sadra back, if it wasn't on, if it had been removed to just wipe off the perspiration from the long hours of being there. So he would have the sadra on, and then he would be walking out to the men mandali side, usually partly with his hand on Mera's arm, and then Gohar would take over and we'd be with him till he went. And he would ask for the garland, the pink garland, the garland. Now all the garlands that were offered to Baba and we put round his neck, when it would reach up till here, Eruch would remove the whole lot, and also Eruch would keep dabbing Baba's forehead with a kerchief. So all the flowers were out. There were piles of garlands there, and Baba would accept the garlands because they were an expression of their love for him. If sometimes some child or a tiny woman couldn't reach over to put the garland around Baba's neck, Baba would bend over to help them. So that was all there. But in here, there were also some which we kept, because they were not of fresh flowers. They were made of felt or paper or cloth or some material that could be preserved, kept. There was a pink garland, I remember, but we couldn't find it at this short notice because Baba wanted to do it quick and get it over with. And he said, a garland, where's my garland? The garland. And we said, but Baba, you look beautiful as it is, it's all right, as you're in a hurry, because we couldn't find the garland. No, said Baba, the garland. At last we got the garland. He almost himself halfway put it on, like he put on a scarf, and he went over to the men's side, gave darshan, came back, gave up. Now that was explained by Baba later, because it seemed not understandable. But Baba, having opened his heart a crack for that occasion, when all his lovers were before him, it wasn't shut yet, right away. So when he was going back for one individual, the force of it would be too much. So the force had to be broken or distracted. So naturally you see, what a pretty garland. It was eyes, force,